On January 13, 2020, in Kyiv, Russia, Vera Pekhteleva was brutally murdered by her ex-boyfriend, Vladislav Kuyus, in a senseless act of violence. For hours, Vera's screams echoed through the apartment complex, but despite repeated calls for help from neighbors, the police failed to intervene, allowing the attack to continue. By the time the authorities arrived, it was too late. Vera's death exposed a series of societal failures, including a justice system that failed to protect her, police indifference, and cultural attitudes toward domestic violence in Russia. The tragedy sparked outrage and calls for change, but to fully understand the horror, we must look at Vera's life, her relationship with Vlad, and the systemic issues that enabled such violence. Welcome. This is Crime Uncovered, where every case has a story, and the truth is often stranger and darker than fiction. If you are yet to subscribe to my channel, kindly do so to stay updated on the latest crime we would uncover next. Vera Pekhteleva, a 22-year-old woman from Kyiv, Russia, was known for her beauty, intelligence, and creativity. A natural talent for singing allowed her to win numerous contests throughout her school years, earning admiration from family and friends. Many expected Vera to pursue a career in the arts, but she surprised everyone by choosing a different path. She decided to study economic security with the goal of fighting corruption in Russia, a country where corruption runs deep. Vera's decision reflected her maturity and desire to make a real impact in society, beyond the world of music. Vera's academic journey was marked by her dedication and brilliance. She excelled in her studies, gaining recognition for her sharp mind and passion for addressing societal issues. Vera's choice to leave behind the arts for a career in economic security was bold, but it aligned with her vision for a better Russia. She wanted to contribute to the fight against corruption in a meaningful way, and studying economic security provided the tools she needed to do so. Her decision was not just about a career, but about making a difference. Vera envisioned herself working in government or with organizations dedicated to anti-corruption reform. She was driven by a sense of responsibility to the society she saw around her, eager to bring change to a country plagued by systemic corruption. Vera had a strong relationship with both of her parents, Oksana and her father, despite their divorce when she was young. She maintained a connection with her father, though her bond with her mother was especially close. Oksana was Vera's confidant, the one person with whom she shared her hopes, fears, and dreams. Their relationship was a constant source of strength for Vera, especially as she navigated the complexities of her personal life. As Vera faced challenges in her relationship with Vladislav Kuyus, her mother's support remained vital. Oksana was always there to provide advice, even if Vera chose not to heed it. The closeness between them helped Vera stay grounded during the most difficult times, making it clear that their bond was a cornerstone of Vera's resilience. In 2016, Vera Pekhteleva reconnected with Vladislav Kuyus, an old acquaintance, at a party. The two had known each other from school days, but it wasn't until this meeting that their relationship began to take a more personal turn. What started as a casual conversation quickly turned into something deeper as they spent more time together. Vera, drawn to Vlad's charm and perhaps feeling a sense of familiarity from their past, quickly grew attached to him. It wasn't long before what had begun as a friendship blossomed into a romantic relationship. But despite the growing connection, Vera's family and friends couldn't ignore the warning signs that something was off. Vlad's background was anything but ideal. Raised by a single father after his mother abandoned him when he was very young, Vlad's childhood was marred by neglect and emotional trauma. His father, while caring, struggled with his own issues, and the emotional toll of being abandoned by his mother weighed heavily on Vlad. As a teenager, he suffered a further tragedy, witnessing his father's suicide. The loss of his father pushed Vlad into a downward spiral, and the trauma from these events would haunt him for years. Unable to cope with the pain, he turned to alcohol and petty crime. He dropped out of school in the 9th grade and became known for his volatile temper, cruelty, and violent behavior. His reputation for being mean and aggressive spread, and his emotional instability became a defining characteristic. Despite these glaring red flags, Vera believed that her love could change him. She was certain that with her support, Vlad could overcome his dark past and find peace. Her belief in the transformative power of love led her to overlook the dangerous signs of his character. She saw the man who had been hurt by life and believed that her compassion could fix him. Unfortunately, this belief in her ability to help him blinded her to the reality of the relationship. Her family, however, saw the situation for what it was. They could see how emotionally unstable and destructive Vlad was, and they repeatedly warned Vera that he was no good for her. Her parents, especially her mother Oksana, urged her to leave him, expressing concern that Vlad was using her for emotional and financial support. Vera's friends also noticed that she was becoming more withdrawn, and they tried to intervene, telling her that Vlad was taking advantage of her, using her as a means to escape his own problems. But Vera, in love and determined to make the relationship work, refused to listen. She convinced herself that love could heal him, that she could change him. As her family grew increasingly concerned, Vera became more secretive about her relationship. She stopped sharing pictures of Vlad on social media, and the two stopped attending family events together. Vera distanced herself from the people who cared about her the most, keeping her relationship with Vlad private. This secrecy only deepened the strain between Vera and her family, as they watched helplessly while she continued her relationship with a man they believed to be dangerous. Her parents' warnings went unheeded. They knew that Vlad was emotionally abusive, but Vera was determined that their love could conquer all. She tried to keep her personal life hidden from her loved ones, but over time, the cracks in the relationship became more apparent. Despite the growing pressure from her family, Vera remained resolute in her decision to stay with Vlad. In her mind, she had invested so much emotionally that leaving him was unthinkable. She believed that with enough time, Vlad could change. But as the relationship progressed, it became clear that this hope was nothing more than a delusion, and the consequences of her choices would soon unfold in devastating ways. In 2019, Vera moved into a small apartment near her college in Kirovo, Russia. She was living independently, but soon after, Vlad moved in with her. What had once seemed like a fresh start quickly devolved into a nightmare. Vlad showed little interest in contributing to the household. He refused to get a job, preferring to drink his days away. Vera's friends and family saw her becoming more withdrawn, and they were increasingly concerned about her well-being. Her mother, Oksana, was particularly worried. She noticed that Vera seemed increasingly unhappy and was becoming more isolated, avoiding family events and keeping her relationship with Vlad a secret. Despite the constant red flags, Vera refused to leave him. Her friends and family continued to raise their concerns, but Vera felt trapped, convinced that she could change Vlad if she just loved him enough. This tragic belief was what kept her in the relationship long after it became clear that Vlad was emotionally abusive and manipulative. By November 2019, after suffering physical abuse, Vera made the difficult decision to leave Vlad. Her family was relieved, but Vlad was not going to let go so easily. He refused to leave the apartment, even threatening to kill Vera if she didn't return. His behavior became increasingly erratic and violent, but Vera was determined to move on with her life. She left for a college dormitory, leaving behind much of her personal belongings, and her parents continued to pay the rent on the apartment that Vlad was now occupying. On January 12, 2020, after several weeks of silence, Vera received an unexpected call from Vlad. He told her it was time to come and collect her belongings from the apartment. Vera had been avoiding him but knew she couldn't put it off any longer. With a test scheduled for the next day, she reluctantly agreed to meet him that evening. Her intention was clear: gather her things quickly, avoid confrontation, and leave. She arrived at the apartment at 5 p.m. on January 13, 2020, with the goal of wrapping up the move in time to meet her friend at the dorm by 6 p.m. to finish the rest of her things. What she thought would be a simple, routine task would soon turn into a horrifying and life-altering nightmare. Vera texted her friend, saying she would be done packing in 30 minutes. But as the time went on, the tone of her messages shifted dramatically. The next text she sent was a whisper, a subtle yet chilling indication that something had gone terribly wrong. The words were vague, but enough to signal that Vera was feeling increasingly anxious and frightened. A confrontation had erupted between Vera and Vlad, and it wasn't long before things took a darker turn. Vlad, in his familiar controlling manner, took her phone from her, cutting off her ability to communicate. At 7:19 p.m., Vlad sent a voice message to Vera's friend. He claimed that everything was fine and that he would help Vera with her things once they were done. His tone was unervingly calm, an attempt to reassure Vera's friend and cover up what was happening behind closed doors. Vera's friend, unsure of the situation and trusting the message, reluctantly stepped back, unaware that these would be Vera's final moments. Inside the apartment, however, the situation was far from fine. With her phone taken from her and no way to reach out, Vera was left trapped, vulnerable, and alone with a man who had become increasingly dangerous. The facade that Vlad put up to Vera's friend hid the terrifying truth of what was happening in that apartment, a truth that would soon take Vera's life. In the early hours of January 14, 2020, at approximately 3 a.m., Vera's agonizing screams pierced the stillness of the apartment complex. The raw, desperate cries echoed down the hallways, a chilling sound that made it impossible for anyone to ignore. Neighbors, alarmed by the terrifying noises, immediately called the police, hoping for a swift response. However, once again, the authorities failed to act, leaving Vera to suffer in isolation. The sound of Vera's screams grew louder, more frantic, as she begged for help, her voice breaking with fear and pain. Along with her cries, there was the sickening thud of her being struck, the cruel sound of violence echoing through the walls. As the violence escalated, Vera's desperate attempts to escape became more frantic. She pounded against the iron door of her apartment, her fists striking it repeatedly in a hopeless attempt to break free from the nightmare unfolding inside. The sound of her frantic banging reverberated through the building, but no one from the outside could get in. The neighbors, hearing these frantic noises, were beside themselves. They knew something terrible was happening, yet no help came. The terror that Vera felt in those moments was unimaginable as she fought for her life, desperately hoping for someone to intervene. Despite several calls to the police, no help arrived. The clock continued to tick, and the situation inside the apartment grew more dire. The hours dragged on, each minute adding to the horror of Vera's suffering. Neighbors, increasingly frantic and helpless, decided to take matters into their own hands. In an attempt to save her, they found a crowbar and tried to force open the door. They knew they had to act quickly, but it was too late. By the time they managed to break the door open, Vera had already endured a brutal beating. She was in the final, agonizing moments of her life. The damage was done. Vlad, in a sickening act of cruelty, had used a sharper knife to inflict 5 more deep cuts on her. The prolonged abuse left Vera barely able to continue pleading for her life. Her cries, once filled with fear and desperation, slowly began to fade, silenced by the relentless brutality she was enduring. Around 6:30 a.m., Vera's cries ceased altogether. The injuries she had sustained were too severe, and she had reached the point where she could no longer call for help. At that moment, Vlad, who had remained disturbingly calm throughout the entire ordeal, spoke in a chilling whisper. "Vera, please forgive me. I love you," he said, as if trying to justify the unspeakable violence he had inflicted upon her. His words were a grotesque mockery of love. With one final, deliberate act of brutality, he struck her in the back of the head with a blow so forceful that it caused fatal brain damage. Vera, already on the brink of death, was finally silenced. But Vlad wasn't finished. In a final, grotesque act of control, he wrapped an iron cord around Vera's lifeless body and pulled it, ensuring that she was truly dead. At last, the neighbors, who had been helplessly listening to the horror unfold, managed to break open the door. What they found inside was beyond what anyone could have imagined. Vera's bloody body lay lifeless, a grotesque testament to the brutality she had suffered. In the bathroom, they found Vlad, drunk and disoriented, holding the bloody knife in his hand, seemingly detached from the horrific scene around him. It was nearly 7 a.m. when the police finally arrived, But by then, it was too late. Vera was already dead, and Vlad, the man responsible for her death, had been caught. The authorities, having failed to intervene earlier, now arrived to find nothing but the aftermath of their indifference. The investigation that followed Vera's death revealed the true extent of the violence she had endured. Her body showed signs of 56 separate cuts, deep gashes to her head, face, and neck, and evidence of brutal strangulation. The crime was calculated and deliberate, and the authorities quickly realized that this was no spontaneous act of violence. It was the result of years of manipulation and control. But while the brutality of the crime was clear, the response from the Russian authorities was anything but swift. 3 emergency workers were charged with failing to act during the 3.5-hour window in which neighbors repeatedly called for help. But their punishments were shockingly light. They were given suspended sentences and only ordered to pay Vera's family a meager compensation. The lack of urgency and the failure to address the calls for help highlighted the deep-seated problems within the Russian legal and police systems. Vlad was arrested and eventually brought to trial, where he attempted to justify his actions. His defense team argued that the violence was not premeditated, claiming that he had been reacting to Vera's provocation. He admitted to beating her, but he insisted that his intent was never to kill her, portraying the attack as a result of an emotional outburst rather than a calculated act of brutality. However, forensic evidence presented during the trial painted a starkly different picture. The extent of Vera's injuries, 56 separate wounds, including deep cuts and blunt force trauma, revealed the violent nature of the attack and the deliberate way in which he had targeted her. The forensic evidence indicated that Vlad's actions were not a spur-of-the-moment act of rage but a sustained, intentional assault. It was clear that he had planned and executed the violence with the full knowledge of what he was doing. Vlad was sentenced to 17 years in prison, but many, including Vera's family, felt that the punishment was far too lenient for such a horrific crime. The brutality of his actions, combined with the prolonged suffering he inflicted on Vera, warranted a much harsher sentence. However, the Russian justice system's response was far from adequate. Just months into his sentence, Vlad was released from prison as part of a broader initiative by the Russian government to send prisoners to fight in the war in Ukraine. Vlad, like many others, was drafted to join the military as a way to supplement Russia's military ranks. The news of his release came as a shock to Vera's family, who had been under the impression that he would serve out his full sentence. Instead, after only 6 months in prison, he was freed and sent to the front lines, a move that highlighted the flawed and inconsistent nature of the Russian legal system. This decision to release violent offenders like Vlad for military service reflected the government's priorities and disregard for justice for the victims of their crimes. By the time Vera's family learned of Vlad's release, it was too late. He was already free, and the impact of his release only deepened the sense of injustice they felt. This case served as yet another example of the many ways in which the Russian justice system failed to protect its citizens and hold perpetrators of violence accountable. Vera's tragic death has become a symbol of the systemic failures that allowed her murder to happen. The indifference of the police, the leniency of the justice system, and the cultural attitudes towards domestic violence in Russia all played a part in allowing this crime to go unpunished for so long. Her mother, Oksana, continues to fight for justice, advocating for stronger laws to protect women from domestic violence. Despite the heartbreak, Vera's family remains determined to ensure that her death was not in vain. The case has sparked national outrage and highlighted the urgent need for change in how Russia addresses domestic violence. Vera's story serves as a reminder of the dangers of domestic abuse and the importance of holding abusers accountable. Her death, while tragic, has fueled a movement to end domestic violence in Russia and ensure that the voices of victims are heard. If you found this case as chilling and mysterious as we did, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more true crime stories. Don't miss out on future cases, updates, and deep dives into true crimes.